But Anaya, I can't see this, and here we're blocking the walkway. Maybe we need to move a bit like this. Here.
Down here?
Like we're not enough to block the walkway. Maybe you guys can. The police restrictions are getting increasingly strict.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised you even get this authorized by...
I mean, there are derogations, and because we've been doing it following the rules, they allow it every week. But it's very dependent on us continuing to...
Yeah.
I can't see past here. Anna, I can't see you. Huh? You need to go more in the center. But you can speak at this.
So guys, let's start this. I'm going to quickly turn it. So welcome everybody to our Fridays for Freedom protest. Like every week we are here in front of the British government to demand world government, and especially the biggest democracies on this planet, to unite and protect democracy and freedom fighters all over the world. As you know, this protest started when the Chinese government implemented a draconian law on Hong Kong on the 1st of July, and that week, 3 months ago, we decided it was time to take action. So people like us all over the world started protesting in front of Chinese embassy and then in front of government, as we're doing right now, to ask for major democracy, for places like the UK, to take decisive action, like economic sanctions, diplomatic sanctions, to protect the freedom fighters and the people of Hong Kong, the people of Thailand, the people of Venezuela, the people of Nigeria, and all those people like us. They share the values of freedom, of democracy, of political free speech, and they are right now under the oppression of regimes like the Communist Chinese Party. So, as every week we are here today, we representatives from several communities, from Hong Kong to the Thailand protest to the End SARS movement in Nigeria, and we're going to give them the platform to share the message of hope and freedom with everyone that is here today, and obviously on our Facebook stream, they reaches more than 100 countries every Friday. I'm extremely glad, just before I pass the mic to our first speaker, I'm extremely glad to see so many people coming out every Friday. Despite COVID, despite the cold, despite the winter, despite the night time, I see so many faces that were seen live, and I'm here every week. And that's the most important thing, to keep the freedom flame alive all over the world. Exactly as we stand here, today we protest in Paris, in Milan, in Seattle, in Brisbane, all over the world. People like us, small or big groups, together to show the world that there is hope. That we won't forget those that are fighting for freedom. That even the toughest censorship and the toughest threats, like the one that are ongoing right now, in many of the countries that exist before, won't silence. We won't leave them alone. And as every time we are here, I tell you, remember that by coming here, you give a little drop of hope, a little spark of hope, to those that right now can't even see anymore songs, to those that can't post on social media how they feel, to those that can even see their parents or their family anymore. So I'm very grateful for you coming here also today. Today we're going to have three very cool speakers, giving us a bit the vibe of what's going on in their respective countries and communities, and obviously explaining us how we can help. The first one will be Tommy Thomas, is behind there, a kayak and from the host of the Subverted podcast. He's going to talk about integration in Thailand. Then we're going to see the founders of Hong Kong Liberty, and from Hong Kong obviously, and then we should have also two protesters from the End SARS movement in Nigeria. In the last day, have across the web in the press all over the world for their bravery and strength. So allow me to welcome Thomas from Thailand, and he's going to tell us about the situation on the ground in Thailand. Thank you.
On here, definitively.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Lau again for allowing me to amplify the voices of people in Thailand fighting for democracy, fighting for freedom, fighting for human rights. Last week, I spoke about what's happening in Thailand. I spoke about why the protesters are protesting and why we need to stand with Thailand. I also talked about the brutal crackdown the Thai government has started on its people. The crackdown that has seen protesters met with riot police, the crackdown that has seen protesters being attacked with water cannons, laced with tear gas, and of course the mass arrest of protesters. Now a week has passed, and I can confidently say the government has done nothing to heed the demands of protesters. In fact, I woke up to news today that 4 prominent protest leaders were going to be released. A few hours later, 3 were then rearrested immediately, leaving families, leaving supporters, and leaving friends all confused and angry. 2 of those protesters were put in chokehold, 1 who is still unconscious. We must stand with the Thai people, we must stand against injustice, and the world governments need to do so much more. There was a parliamentary session to discuss the demands of the protesters, but if you saw the agenda points, you would know that another agenda was at hand. The protesters who have been rearrested today include Room, Mike, and Penguin. And we must call for their release, we must call for democracy in Thailand, and we must stand with the Thai people. I want us all to call on the UK government and governments around the world to launch a coordinated effort to put real pressure on authoritarian regimes like that in Thailand to respect human rights and respect democracy. One of these human rights issues that have been happening for a long time in Thailand is enforced disappearances. Enforced disappearance occurs when an individual is abducted by a state, by a regime, or a group or individual, and this abduction is sponsored by the state, and the fate of those who have been abducted is not recognized. This has long been an issue. It affects more than just human rights and the pro-democracy activists. It affects environmental activists. It affects all who are deemed as opposition to those in power. The latest case is that of Wanchula Sapsakit, a pro-democracy and pro-human rights activist who fled to Cambodia after the 2014 military coup, like many dissidents, and he disappeared on the 4th of June 2020. His whereabouts are still unknown, despite this incident being caught on CCTV, and his sister even expressed that she heard the most infamous phrase of this year, "I can't breathe." No proper investigation has been carried out into this case, or the 82 other cases of enforced disappearance in Thailand, despite the uproar from citizens, uproar from human rights organizations, and uproar from people all around the world. And this cannot continue. People should not have to live in fear or fear disappearing because of what they say, what they think, and what they believe. There are many people who have disappeared who are saying the same things that people are saying today, and they had just as much right then as they do now to say those things. The state has tried to silence them, and they're trying to silence us by creating an atmosphere of fear and instilling in us that this could happen to any one of us. And this cannot and will not stop us. Some of these people disappeared across borders. Countries need to stand up to human rights, for human rights, and stand up to countries who are trying to commit human rights violations on their soil. Hence, why I call again on the UK government and governments around the world to do more in the way of human rights. Economic sanctions, do it. These regimes have already destroyed their economies And we just need a little push to fight for democracy and human rights around the world. If I may, read out a few names of those who have disappeared to keep their story alive and call for hopefully justice and resolve for the families of these victims. Somchai Nilapatit, Kitsana Tappai, Siam Tirawut, Chuchi Chiwatsut, Surachai Sedan, Itipol Sukapan, Polaji Rakchong Taron. Please raise your three fingers with me to stand up to the dictatorship that's happening in Thailand, to stand with the Thai people, and to fight for democracy, human rights, and freedom around the world. Thank you.
Woo!
Thank you, Tom. Thank you so much for these very powerful words and for reminding us every week that what's going on in Thailand doesn't stop the minute we stop reading about the news in Thailand. That it's an ongoing struggle. And we still have to fight every day, every week, every hour. Thank you, Tom, for this. I have now the pleasure to introduce our second speaker. He's from Hong Kong Liberty, Hong Kong activist, and much more. So I give him the floor.
On there.
I'm also the founder of the Hong Kong of the Fight for Freedom, Stand with Hong Kong team. In Hong Kong, people call me Brother Lam Chao, which is a persona I created back in June 2019. Lam Chao is a popular Cantonese slang. The English meaning from a popular strategy. In general, it can be translated as a return to firmness. Lam Chao is essentially a term that I just happened to have borrowed and used back online. Used online back in June 2019. It is known as one of the key ideologies that steer the movement. Lam Chao is and this is something that represents an idea. This is something that completely out of certainty. And this is something that broad media, like the Telegraph, the Guardian, or the New York Times might have overlooked or not realized while reporting the Hong Kong protest. The traction it gained was unexpected. Since then, my team and I began launching and working on different initiatives on both international and local stages, such as organizing global advertisement newspaper campaigns around the globe, and multiple rounds of rallies calling for sanctions against government officials and Hong Kong government officials and the CCP, and arranging for the foreign parliamentarian to visit Hong Kong. On the first day of 2020, I became one of the 10,000 arrestees in the movement. During the New Year's Day demonstration, I was arrested together along with a few hundred others. We were sent into a space and we were cramped into a space at the police station where each of us was given just a square foot of space to move about. I spent 14 hours there, thinking that's my end. And unfortunately, the police missed the opportunity to work out my identity as one of the key players in the movement. And that is how I narrowly escaped the risk of being disappeared. And the horror story did not end on that day. A few months ago, I was ambushed by a street gang in the dark in a normally safe neighborhood. I was struck in the head as well as hurt in the eye and was left flipped out on the street. During the ambulance ride to the hospital, there was a moment in which I asked myself, is this truly the end of my life? And if you look closely, you will see that there is a scar right to my next to my right eye, which is reminding me the horrific episode. And to be frank, I'm not sure whether such an attack was instructed by the CCP. That the police couldn't often enough to accept the investigation. However, this incident to a certain extent reminds every Hong Konger or freedom fighters like yourself here today that the threat from Beijing is always present. I have to emphasize that the authoritarian CCP regime threatens not just the lives of Hong Kongers, the Uyghurs, the Taiwanese, Tibetan people, but it's also indeed encroaching upon the daily lives of peoples around the globe. Last November, Daryl Morey, the then general manager of NBA Rockets team, had tweeted one of the logo that of the logo of one of the teams that I founded in 2019. Soon later, he was being criticized, severely criticized by Beijing, which also issued an administrative order to suspend NBA live streams in China as a punishment. This in turn caused great concerns and instigated debate among Americans. Despite receiving verbal support from the NBA general management, team and the general public, he had then resigned and left. Carrying on with the sports theme, I am not sure whether any one of you here today is an Arsenal fan or a football fan at all. But still one of the top tier midfielders in the world recently got excluded from the Premier League squad without a clear explanation. The reason could be that he has been vocal on the Uyghurs, for which he too suffered from frequent attacks from Beijing. So as you can see, first they flattened the NBA and now the EPL. It's simply a matter of time that the CCP will try or attempt to fully stifle the freedom of speech in every corner of the world. It could be rugby, cricket, or even the Olympics if the world does not join hands to stand up and fight for freedom together. I'm grateful that the international community is waking up, and the emergence of NOW and other NGOs has played a vital role in waking up the civil society around the world and constraining the CCP from its oppression of human rights. Now is the time to fight for humanity. Now is the time to fight for freedom and democracy. Now for them. And now I'm going to speak a few words in Cantonese for my fellow Hong Kongers. It was just a very short Cantonese speech. 首先好多謝大家今日出席呢一個集會，甚至乎係之前嘅集會，大家都有出席到嘅，大家一路係會堅持。係啦，其實除咗今日係我第一次用英文去做一個 meeting， 所以亦都係第一次用中文或者用廣東話去做一個 meeting。其實最近真係有好多令人開心嘅新聞，特別係睇到呢個學生公寓新聞，甚至乎係睇到中國人佢上囚車，甚至乎係睇到佢2017年一啲嘅銀行文，其實都係令我覺得係越睇係越難受。即係作為一個身中係4條國安法，甚至乎一堆煽動又好乜都好嘅罪名嘅人，即係我自己就睇到佢嗰種嗰種嘅壓力，係啦。所以其實甚至乎我喺度問自己，已經喺度問，到底其實好人係咪真係一生平安嘅咧？即係我絕對明白呢一句係一個祝福嘅説話，但係其實我覺得有時我哋必須要認清，其實做一個好人，我哋面對嘅路可能係更加難行，係比一啲埋沒良知嘅人係更加係去行開。咁但係唔緊要，但係我哋係一定要咁樣繼續去行。即係其實好多人可能會以為我係一個正能量嘅，但係其實唔係。我覺得大家亦都係會有好多唔同嘅負能量，但我覺得係要呢一個。其實細個嘅時候，即係我會係睇咗好多即係我唔知大家有冇睇一樣嘢，就係叫做 Star Wars 啦。咁其實入面就講到話有樣嘢叫光明面、黑暗面。其實細個時候我就唔明點解，即係佢成日話要有一個平衡。 其實我嗰陣時就喺度諗，點解唔可以執晒落去光明面嗰邊啊？但係其實去到大咗啦，經歷咗可能工作上、讀書、抗爭上、革命上唔同嘅經歷之後，如果我哋將佢放入呢個正能量或者負能量嘅角度去睇，就會突然之間發覺一切都是簡單公平。我哋唔能夠去盲目去追捧話有啲咩嘅正能量，如果唔係我哋就會麻痹咗自己。同時間我哋亦都唔可以去有太多嘅負能量去無處嘅釋放。如果唔係，我哋就會令到自己覺得轉頭覺知，覺得前路係唔通。係啦，所以我哋需要係攞一個平衡。其實我係一個好現實嘅人，我一直以嚟都覺得呢個社會的確係充斥住好多嘅不公，好多嘅不公義。但係亦都係會去傾斜向一個可能有錢嘅人啊，或者係有權勢嘅傾斜。但係我哋呢一個弱勢嘅一方可以做嘅係乜嘢咧？我哋香港人可以做啲乜嘢咧？我哋努力唔一定會去成功，但係我哋如果係努力嘅話，就可以去創造一絲嘅可能，去將呢個咁傾斜嘅社會係慢慢令佢冇咁傾斜。呢一個就係我哋要繼續去努力嘅原因。我相信香港人永不該絕。多謝大家。
So thank you everyone for coming again. We still have two amazing speakers about to speak. But before we move on, I want to hear a bit of screaming for Hong Kong and for Thailand. So you know how it goes. It's the same every week. I ask you what you want, and what you want first is to free Thailand. Then I ask you when you want it, and it's now. And they have to hear us across the street. So I want to hear the strongest scream you've had all week. Are you ready?
Yes!
So what do you want?
Free Hong Kong!
What do you want?
Free Thailand!
When do you want it?
Now!
When do you want it?
Now!
That wasn't bad. We're gonna do better as we go. I want one for Hong Kong as well. We really have to be serious about everything that is happening. About the crackdown on democracy and on rights. I want to hear the strongest scream that you've had up until now for Hong Kong. What do you want?
Free Hong Kong!
What do you want?
Free Hong Kong!
When do you want it?
Now!
When do you want it?
Now!
That was better. We'll keep on going. So, like every week, we have freedom fighters, democracy lovers from all over the world that come together to make sure that we stand for democracy. We heard about the silent protests, about the activists that are getting detained, and sometimes worse because they stand for democracy and for freedom. We heard from Freed about what is happening in Hong Kong. You have here a sign about the 12 Hong Kong youth that are in prison because they fight to free Hong Kong after being persecuted. But the similar struggle is happening in Nigeria, where people have been protesting against SARS to end police violence, and as a result have been met with more violence. 12 people at least have been killed. So today, we stand with Nigeria as well, and I want to welcome two amazing activists on the End SARS movement that will tell you way more than I can about it. So please welcome them.
Guys, at the end we also single together, so stay, because it's gonna be very cool.
Hello everyone, and thank you so much for being here and for inviting us. My name is Ahana and I'm here with Heather. I'm the SHRG.
Sorry, thank you.
As activists, but actually not activists when we speak in Nigeria, but the situation in Nigeria has become so bad that all of the youth have actually become activists. SARS is a special anti-robbery squad. So they essentially are supposed to be on the road to protect the Nigerians from being robbed. However, what they do is they extort Nigerians, kill Nigerians, and literally people disappear every day. This has gone on for as long as 2016, 2017, with Amnesty actually accusing them of killing people unnecessarily. And every year, what happens? Our president tells us SARS has been disbanded, we change the name of the units, and then we just keep doing the same thing. So SARS was disbanded in 2017, we were also disbanded in 2018, and then they were disbanded again in 2019, and surprise, surprise, they were disbanded again in 2020. Since they've been disbanded, many youth have been killed. We're all in the era where people have birth, they're reported. And what so many Nigerians die, we've seen people use their lives on Instagram Live, on Twitter, on Instagram posts, and it's not right. These reports have been taken to the government, taken to everyone in authority in Nigeria, and we've literally not gotten any response. They haven't even acknowledged that the army was sent in to wipe out the whole gang of protesters. From that, we had about 10 confirmed killings that the government has still not acknowledged, and many injured and many missing. Nigerian youth are tired. Enough is enough. The protests in Nigeria started around the 3rd of October, with a few people coming out in one of the major cities, Lagos, and from there, they were met with more violence. We all know that every human being has the right to peacefully protest. However, that's not the case in Nigeria. At first, they were met with hot water. The police were pouring hot water on protesters for literally saying "End SARS," and then they moved to tear gas. And from there, the rest of the country was outraged. The youth came out in numbers in every way. They blocked all of the major roads. We sat down peacefully, waving our Nigerian flags and singing the Nigerian anthem. And guess what? They sent the Nigerian army to go and disband a whole team of peaceful protesters, unarmed protesters. We watched our brothers and sisters die on Instagram Live. And since then, Nigerians in the diaspora everywhere across the globe have been protesting, because enough is enough.
Hello everybody. So like Ahana said, we've been protesting against the killings of our Nigerian brothers and sisters back home. Although we are here, we all have a personal story, whether it's with us or our family or our friends who have experienced brutality from the police, from those that are meant to protect us. NSARS UK, as well as other NSARS groups in the diaspora, have actually come together to sustain the protests that were going on in Nigeria. As a response, our government has actually shut down the protests happening in Nigeria. So now we're amplifying the voices and the movement that has already been started. And we're making sure that our voices are heard. They might stop those in Nigeria, but we're here to remind them that they cannot stop us from here. We know we're in the age of social media. They're trying to convince us and they're trying to twist the story of the movement. What started as a peaceful protest and turned into violence, not by the protesters themselves, but by the government. So now we're using our voices here, New York, around the world, wherever, to let them know that they cannot silence us. Now we have woken up. We will not back down. We will continue to remind them that they cannot get away with killing us, our people, and just literally walking over us. So yeah, we're here to just tell everybody, please share NSARS, have the discussions with people around you, use the hashtag, because this is literally brutality against human beings, human lives. We're just here protesting, not as activists, but as people, saying that people do not deserve to be killed. No one deserves to be killed, especially by those that are meant to protect us. So yeah, thank you. So as Stella was mentioning, this weekend rather, got quite a number of episodes. So in New York, in Canada, in Australia, in Ghana, in South Africa, literally all over the world, and we're all marching this weekend. So for today, tomorrow, and Saturday, and Sunday, we're going to be marching all over the world. They've stopped the protests in Nigeria because they've been killing people and shooting people, and it's not fair for us to ask the people to be risking their lives.
So we've actually taken it upon ourselves to march because the government hasn't acknowledged that people died. And we keep asking who placed the order, who called the army, and everybody is dodging the question. They haven't answered the question, and it's a crime. It's a crime against humanity. So we're all marching all over the world. We're sharing things all over the internet because we have all of the proof, we have all of the recordings, and we have so many Nigerians across the world and so many allies and people who care about Nigeria. So please share, please tell people, please keep the conversation going because every human being deserves the right to peacefully protest.
Thank you, guys.
We're going to start a chat and it goes like this. When I say what do we want, you respond by saying NSAS. And when I say when do we want it, you say now. So what do we want?
Answers!
When do we want it?
Now!
What do we want?
Answers!
When do we want it?
Now!
Time, what do we want?
Answers!
When do we want it?
Now! Thank you.
So just before we sing, like every week, we are introduced the singing contest. I want to thank you all for coming every week since July 3rd to protest for democracy. We started protesting for Hong Kong. We ended up protesting for all democracy struggles. All struggles for freedom, for people to be able to protest in peace. You've heard it. Tomorrow, go out in the streets. Protest with the NSAS movement. Make sure you make your voice heard. But don't stop there. Demand better from your government. The UK government just across the street, which is why we're doing this protest here, has the power to create a coalition of democracies fighting for freedom and democracy. We can't wait any longer to hope that someday they suddenly realize that killing people is not the right way forward. We can't hope any longer to wait for a communist Chinese party to suddenly decide to stop cracking down on freedom, on rights, and stop committing genocide. We can't stop any longer, we can't wait any longer, to wait for the Thai monarchy and the Thai government to suddenly realize that they shouldn't crack down on students' rights, shouldn't imprison people protesting for democracy. We need to do more. Every week since July 1st, we've been protesting in over 40 cities across the world. We started with Andrea and another person in Brussels, got chased away by the Chinese embassy, and it quickly extended to over 40 cities across the world. Andrea already told you, but today we had protests in Seattle, in Toronto, we had protests in Melbourne, we had protests in Brooklyn, we had protests across South Africa. Every Friday across the world, people are standing together and saying no more. We want our governments to do more. So thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on this very special day. And it is a very special day because Emily will tell you how today we also host a memorial. How today we need to remember those that have been killed. Those that have lost their lives while protesting for freedom and democracy. It's amazing that we get to do it safely here and in other places across the world. But it's not the case of everyone. So on this note,
Okay, so we're going to try what we tried last week. So as many of you know, October the 31st is tomorrow, and you might know that Halloween is selling.
Very close. Closer, closer.
or Venezuela. The pictures here are of two protesters who, yes, have actually been acknowledged or known. The first is Alex Chow, who was a student at the Hong Kong University of Science and Technology, and during a protest, he died when he fell from the third story of a parking lot during a police dispersal effort using tear gas. The circumstances of his fall are unknown and ambiguous, and it's well known that police presence was close at that time, and that they did block first aid from reaching him and others. Transparency by the Hong Kong police is handling both cases. They want us to believe that these deaths were all just accidents or suicides. But why should people take them at their word when they've done so much to break people's trust in them? It's an environment of distrust that they created. And also the police have refused to acknowledge responsibility for anything they've done to brutalize the people. And so many more protesters who have disappeared or whose deaths have been ruled out as suicides. So today I want to honor those who have perished in the name of freedom and those who have never received justice. We're going to speak in invocation to them now. As the wheel turns and the candle burns, we honor those who have passed. We thank you for your courage, your service, and your sacrifice. May your souls receive justice. We honor your passing. You will never be forgotten. Bless our souls. So mote it be. So at this point, I'm going to invite you all, if you know someone who has fallen or disappeared, or if you fear for someone, whether it be in Hong Kong or Nigeria or in Thailand or anywhere else, I invite you to light a candle for them, and I'll provide scissors for you to etch your name in their in the candle if you like, and or maybe just simply light one in remembrance for them. So let's keep fighting another day, and let their sacrifices not be in vain. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you will all have a chance to go and light a candle. I propose to take quickly a group picture before we proceed to that. Please, everyone who feels comfortable being in a picture, because we will try to. If everyone who feels comfortable in being in a picture, we will share it on social media. So for those who don't want to be on social media, no?
Come here, guys.
Come here and then come over here. We need to move here.